Chair. Go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the business meeting of the County Council. All the same rules as the morning apply. And we're going to start with item 9E, which is the annual report by the Director of Public Health. And I'm going to invite Councillor Ian Morris to move the report.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. And can I just say congratulations on your appointment as Chair as well, which I forgot to say earlier, so I do apologise. Thank you very much. This is a very important report, as we know. It is an independent report by the Director of Public Health, and it's for the year 2019 to 2020. The one thing you will notice is that this went to print at the start of the COVID-19 outbreak, and therefore it has not been specifically mentioned in the report. However, it has to be recognised as being one of the biggest health challenges of our generation and is sure to have a huge impact on how we live our lives. This report seeks to advise partner organisations, agencies and other local authority departments how they can all work together to ensure policy and decision making is done, taking into account the health impact of the population of Northamptonshire. In light of the current COVID-19 pandemic, we are reminded in this challenging time of the importance of working collaboratively, in order to achieve the best possible outcome for the people of Northamptonshire. And I would like to add my thanks to Lucy Whiteman, our Director of Public Health, for the enormous amount of work that she's undertaken together with her teams, and in fact, all officers that have been involved with the COVID-19 health crisis. It has been quite remarkable to watch the level of work and the great service that they've been giving to this county during this epidemic. I would pass over now to Margaret to take any questions on me specifically on the report, and she will present the report on behalf of Lucy Whiteman.
Thank you, Councillor. First, though, I'll ask Councillor Sylvia Hughes to second the report.
Thank you, Chair. And may I add my congratulations on your appointment as Chair. I know last year's report, annual report, focused on the health inequalities that exist in our county. This year's report, I see, builds on that, identifying the underlying causes of poor health and providing ideas for actions that could be adopted locally to address them. Councillor, we've just already mentioned about the single agency. There is no single agency responsible for shaping all these factors. Besides local government, there are the public bodies, the voluntary sector, as mentioned earlier, and businesses. We all have a role to work together collaboratively to achieve it. We do, of course, have a fantastic opportunity here in Northamptonshire to work together. The formation of the new integrated care system, as well, of course, as the creation of the two new unitaries. These are great opportunities. We're also, I want to mention, excited about becoming the first county in England to introduce an integrated cross-sector county-wide social prescribing service at scale. This is a huge achievement and an outstanding result for Northamptonshire. The report obviously provides an overview of the evidence base to link the links between social and environmental factors and health outcomes, as well as making the economic case for prevention, the main remit of public health. So it's a pleasure to second the report.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. The Director of Public Health, Lucy Whiteman, is on a very, very well-deserved break. So we have from her department, Margaret Enyaluko, I hope I've got that right, to represent her and introduce the report.
Thank you very much. As the rest said, I'm representing the Director of Public Health. This is the report of the 2019-2020, and unfortunately, like Councillor Morris mentioned, this report had been written and completed prior to us being hit by COVID. However, COVID indeed exposed and exacerbated all the things that we're all about, which is about health inequalities. So just to say that the core purpose of this report, or of the Director of Public Health, is to be an independent advocate for the health of the population and to basically provide system leadership across. This report it's also one of the responsibilities of the Director of Public Health to produce an annual report, which is what this is about. And basically, this was published in May. So this has provided us with 5 opportunities to raise awareness and understanding of the well-being of the county, to identify key issues and challenges, which I'll be happy to take questions about, of the well-being of the population, to provide added value above the normal intelligence and information that is easily available, and to reflect on what taken previously so as to impact work going forward. And lastly, to be used as a form of advocacy in terms of needs and current priorities and continuing progress. This report has identified 8 recommendations, which I will summarize, and it cuts across all ages. And basically, it's and these recommendations that cut across all ages ranges from pregnancy to supporting older people with independence. And I'm not sure we all have the record and the 8 recommendations are there, but I'm happy either to go through all one by one or just to summarize what the 2 priorities will be, but broken down into 8 recommendations. So these 2 priorities are basically enabling economic and social renewal that points and provides health and well-being of the people first, and reduce health inequalities. And secondly, to continue, based on what's going on at the moment, preventing and managing COVID-19 effectively for as long as necessary by building a stronger health protection system.
Thank you very much. We've got some councillors who'd like to ask questions, and the first I had on my list was Councillor Hales.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations, and also best wishes to Susie in her new job going forward. I responded to this report back in April, and I sent my comments over to Lucy then, and saying it was an excellent build on the year's previous report, but there was some areas of concern that I did like to highlight in it. And I think this is one of the areas with us not being able to have health scrutiny committees anymore, that we could have picked these up, you know, through the year as it goes on, when Lucy used to attend those meetings. So there's one area that I think has been greatly missed, and it's also been put up under the children's safeguarding, is there's no reference whatsoever within this section about children being homeschooling. And it's not just their education avoids, it's all about social integration, etc., that goes around with children home education. I mean, some of these children do exceptionally well, and I'm not saying I'm against it, but I think in Northamptonshire we have got an increasing problem, and has been highlighted over the last couple of years about this. And then the only other thing I'd like to highlight today is when you look at the recommendations, and it was previously when they actually encouraged the use of vaping rather than cigarettes. And even up till last year, there is still no long-term effects the using of vapors. I think because you see the shops popping up all over the place, you don't know whether these are regulated and what ingredients are being put into these vapors. Being a non-smoker, I don't totally get it at all why people need it, but some people do need these enhancements within their lives. But I'd like once again to thank the staff for the sterling work they've done through this last 6 months, because I mean it's a amount of pressure on those staff, and as councillors we can only admire what Lucy and her team has done to help save Northamptonshire going through this COVID. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hales. Councillor McGee asked to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome the report, Chair. I do, and I welcome the fact about social prescribing, because social prescribing means a lot of different things to different people. But we do have dedicated workers across the county working in social prescribing, and that has got to be welcomed. I know it is certainly in my area in Corby. But Chair, I did ask at the Cabinet in June, I believe it was, last year's report and this year's report, it highlights the different health issues across the county. And we have severe pockets of deprivation in health, as well as other issues. And Corby, unfortunately, is one of them. And the Kingswood division, which I represent and have done for 20 odd years, was on its way up at one time. But these horrific cuts from nationally down to local government, police, etc., things have been harder. So I did ask the leader if he would talk to Lucy, and I'm sure Margaret will take this up, but I did ask specifically to concentrate on these areas. We won't change anything unless we concentrate specific areas where there is real health deprivation. The difference in life expectancy between the area I represent and the area in the south of this county is horrific. And that is not, playing with words, it's true, it's horrific. And that has got to be changed, Chair. And Councillor Goldberg, at the leader of your group at the Cabinet meeting, said they'll take that challenge away and discuss with the Director of Public Health and bring it back to Councillor McGee. Chair, can I have that reply? When are we going to concentrate in an area like that and make a real difference? After 20 years of sitting at NCC, being involved in many things, it would be nice to see a concentration of different ideas to improve the health of the people, not only in Kingsford Division, but in Corby. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. I have now Councillor Andy Mercer.
Thank you, Chairman. A while ago, one of the commissioners referred to the Cinderella services, and specifically he was thinking of emergency planning. Now, COVID-19 straddles between public health and emergency planning, and we were caught napping, let's be blunt about it. In the vernacular, we were caught with our trousers down. Because antibiotics since the period of the mid-20th century have been so successful and we've done so well with suppressing viruses, we took our eye off the ball and we concentrated on other issues. There is virtually nothing in any recent report by the Director of Public Health about dealing with pandemics, yet public health originated as a system for dealing with pandemics when it was killing vast numbers of people. Now, we've not had vast numbers die, if you can think of under 50,000 as not vast numbers, but we came very close to a total catastrophe. Very few people understand just what exponential growth means. It's not the vernacular that most people think of. It is startlingly high growth, going from one infected person to 60,000 or 500,000 in just a couple of months. That's what exponential growth means. And we need to put more effort in future into predicting and dealing with pandemics. It needs to become once again a central feature of public health, because SARS-CoV-2 is just the first in a line that are coming our way. We dodged a bullet with SARS in, what was it, 2008? We dodged a bullet with MERS in about 2012. And there are several more in the pipeline waiting to jump the species to people. And those will be a lot more lethal than this one. This one kills about 1% of the people infected. SARS was 10%, MERS was about 30%. We need to re-engage with proper pandemic prevention and be looking at it so that we don't get caught again. I welcome all the things that are in the Director's report, but I think that the Director and the rest of the public health system in this country needs to realise that the biggest threat we face is the possibility of another Spanish flu like 1918, which killed 50 million people around the world. We are not trying hard enough.
Thank you, Councillor Mercer. We have Councillor Jill Mercer.
Thank you, Chairman. And my congratulations to add to everybody else's as well to your new post and Councillor Legg. I'm not quite sure why several items in the recommendations from last year have been dropped for this year. The one that stands out is vaccination and screening for cancer. Now, to my mind, especially at the moment, because of the pandemic, I know it's always difficult to be wise after the event, but a vaccination is so important, and I would have thought that that was still a priority. The other one that has dropped off since last year is childhood obesity. And I notice there aren't any on obesity in this current recommendations. And as it's been seen with the COVID, obesity has a high correlation with being more iller than people who are not obese. So I would have thought those two priorities would have been still needed. I do welcome the report though, and I also welcome that it mentions the green patch, which is run by the groundwork at Northamptonshire, which I'm a trustee, and that brings home the value of the voluntary sector has been mentioned elsewhere today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mercer. Councillor Meredith, we have next.
Thank you once again, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate Lucy Whiteman on this report. Absolutely, over the years that she's been director, we've had a tremendous report and very in-depth. And I think we're very lucky to have this director. She's really on the ball. I've seen her on the television talking about health and well-being, and I think we're very lucky on the county council to have her. But on saying that, I'm a bit concerned about the way the things are actually going. Just recently, I telephoned the doctor because I had a text to say that I needed a flu jab because I'm a vulnerable person. Because 2 years ago, I nearly died with the flu, and the National Health Service saved my life. And when I phoned them, they said, you can't have the flu jab until November because of the coronavirus, because we're inundated. Well, November is a high period when they had the flu. And it's just appalling to me that the way the country's going. I know we have to blame COVID-19 for a lot of things are happening, but I'm sincerely worried. But on saying that, we've got a good report here. This report is well presented and well put, and it should be widely made available to people that have an interest in this. We specifically now, especially with the COVID virus, which makes it a bit impossible for elderly people to go to the gym and do exercise and like that. We need to have more exercise facilities on the parks, organised by the county council or the borough councils, and that way we can protect people. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Meredith. I'm sure this report is on the website. Next, we have Councillor Golby.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to say, I obviously support the report, but just on McGee's challenge, I just want to assure him that as a cabinet group, we've talked about this and debated it a couple of times, and I will make sure that I honour that challenge and get a response through the Director of Public Health. As I think we can all appreciate, Lucy Whiteman has been incredibly busy, but I will make sure that Councillor McGee gets a considered evidence-based answer to those questions that, of course, we all are concerned with the different levels of deprivation anywhere in the county. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Golby. And Councillor Pinder-Chohan next, please.
Make reference to page 28 of the report. It refers to an estate that I represent, so the new Prime Estate in Northampton. It also refers to some steps that were taken to help young people and the services to reach out into the community. However, my concern and my question is that this key resource references something that happened in 2018. I was elected in 2017, and I'm not aware of this action that had taken place. I think what we really need to do is it references how young people services and reaching out into the community. I think a lot of the stuff that's being referred to here, we need to make sure that it's present as well, and talk about the steps that are taking place at the moment. So a lot of my division is full of new estates, new young people who may be a bit socially isolated and maybe need a little bit more investment. So I suppose my question to Lucy Whiteman would be, I know she's not present at the moment, but if it could be fed back in writing, would be what steps are we taking to ensure that we've got the right services in place for these young people, and you know, looking at outdoor youth groups, for example, like Streetwise, what other steps are we taking to make sure that we're integrating them with young people in the county, and especially in new estates where we need this kind of integration altogether. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Councillor Smithers.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to sort of pick up on a couple of points and then firstly thank Councillor. Sorry, yes, I'll just turn my mic off. I just wanted to thank Lucy Whiteman for the report, and there's clearly some good stuff in that report, and she's got that report produced with a team at a challenging moment in time as well. What I did want to just pick up and rebalance the scales, as to say, is on Councillor Andy Mercer's comments about this authority to court napping. I'm not sure NCC has been caught napping on, so I think the response has been quite robust, and it's been very challenging for officers and the team here to sort of deal with this. I think if you look at it as a world pandemic, which it is, I think the UK has fared pretty well, should I say, and I think that Northamptonshire has done as good a job as anyone, and I think that was recently highlighted in a Cabinet Downing Street visit to the county a couple of weeks ago. So, I mean, best practice, I think, has come in place. Best practice is not a set model for this, because no one knows what to do, really, apart from deal with the emerging issues on a day-by-day basis. But just wanted to sort of make my view clear on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smithers. I've got no other councillors who indicated, so I wonder if Mrs. Nelly Kuko wants to pick up any points.
Well, thank you very much. I'll try and answer some of the questions, and I'll take some back to the Director of Public Health. So the first question, I think, was about homeschooling and the implications. I believe that the Director of Children's Services has responded to that, and that we're working closely and funding some of the projects so that we can address this, because it's of concern to everybody else. And one other question was about the recommendations about obesity or unhealthy weight in children, like it was there last year. And I'm pleased to say it's also there this year. It's recommendation 3, and we're working closely and following that. We have put in place what is called the Healthy Schools program, in which 4 people have just been appointed to support schools across the 2 unitary authorities going forward. And it's going to include things like mental health, healthy weight, smoking, and everything else. The other thing that we thought was dropped off was to do with screening and vaccination. This is also top priority, but we are working closely with our health colleagues at the CCG and also with the health protection. None of these have dropped off. They are real priorities, and we are working on them, even though they haven't come yet, because we are working in partnership with our health colleagues. There was one question about hotspots, and example was about Kirby. I think we have been working across districts and boroughs, and an example will be with respect to oral health. We have identified 3 hotspots: Northampton, Kirby, and Kettering, and we are putting resources and training dentists and allied health workers. We have also identified within our children, again, it appears to be the 3 top hotspots. However, I take on board that, yes, we need to do some more work with Kirby, and that's why we're doing a refined and up-to-date health needs assessment to identify areas or pockets of deprivation and areas of great need, so that we can target resources accordingly. Another issue that I think was raised And I do apologize for the ones that we didn't get back to you. Like I said, I'll take this back to Lucy Whiteman, and we will provide an evidence-based, need-led response to the inquiry. There was one that was mentioned about mental health. Unfortunately, the line was bad at that time, but I think it's to do with mental health in young people. That was put together and that was raised here. I believe that we are doing some things with mental health. I know we are doing some things with mental health because I'm the lead for children and 0 to 19. And for the first time, we have brought mental health of young people to join physical health of young people, and therefore working closely with our health counterparts. Recently, we also got 101,000 from the government, and again, we are going to be in the next 2 months putting things together to be able to address this over the next 6 months. I'm not sure if I'm sure I've missed some other ones, but I will respond to this and get back, and I'm sure Councillor Morris will be able to maybe add some things like I've said.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Morris next to reply to any comments.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Margaret. I think you did a very good job there of answering most of those questions. I wanted to just make a couple of points, really. One, to point out how important the health of our county is, and also to point out that this report really is setting the seeds for the 2 new unitaries when they come into existence next year for the West and the North. And it very much will be a work that will carry on after the 2 new unitaries have started. So I wanted to reflect on that. I wanted also to really talk about Corby. I know Margaret's talked about Corby, and I know the leader meant to reference the question that John McGee put to him. I would push back a little bit on his assumption that Corby needs more money spending on it. Of course, all areas need more money spending on them, but we have disproportionately spent a lot of money in Corby over the years in a good way, because that's the area of deprivation that has been spotted. And I think that work will continue, as Margaret says. So I would look forward to Lucy's work on identifying the needs in Corby, but I would argue that a lot of those are already being met, and the future needs of Corby will obviously have to be a priority of the North unitary as well. In terms of flu jabs, which Councillor Meredith mentioned, yes, that they are going to be hugely important going forward. My understanding is that they will be rolled out towards the end of September. I know you say you can't get one till November, but there are that through your GP. Of course, you can go to places like Boots and other places to get the flu jab if you are particularly worried. And although there is a cost to that, I believe it's not super expensive. I also wanted to endorse what Councillor Smithers said about us napping at the wheel during this pandemic. That definitely that Councillor Mercer made. We definitely haven't been caught napping at the wheel. I think our response has been second to none in the county. And I think to say anything else is a bit disingenuous to the public health team. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. So we've had the summing up. I'll now ask councillors to, if they accept the advice in the reports, and ask Mr. Hanson to put the poll up.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll launch the poll. Members will have 20 seconds to cast their vote. Chair, that's 45 votes in favour, none against and 1 abstention.
Thank you, Council. That's passed with a considerable majority. And from my own point of view, I'm sure we've seen much closer working within all the health sector bodies recently. And on behalf of the Council, I would like to pass my thanks to Lucy Whiteman and her team for their sterling work in this really difficult time. It can't be something they were expecting, and they've worked over and above and had lots of challenges thrown at them. So my thanks to them. My understanding is that Mr. Petford is now available, so we'll move back to the annual report by the Northamptonshire Health and Wellbeing Board. And if I ask, which is item 9A, if I can ask Councillor Morris to move the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm of course very, very happy to move this report and to bring it forward to you today. This board has done an amazing job, and I think it is again a very good example of cross-party, cross all sorts of places like health, education, everything, and better fund, all those. And I think it has been very ably chaired by Nick Petford, who's about to present this to the council. I leave it at that, Chair. I think Nick can very well sum up the year for the Health and Wellbeing Board. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. And if I could ask Councillor Baker to second the report.
I'm sorry, Chairman, I was late in unmuting. I'm delighted to be able to be asked to second this report. Thank you.
Thank you. And if Mr. Nick Petford, who's the chairman of the Health and Wellbeing Board, is available, if he'd like to introduce it to us, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm here. Thank you, Ian and colleagues. Good afternoon, councillors. What a strange world we're living in. This isn't business as usual, so you'll have to take the whole pandemic piece side by side with the update I'm going to give you, but I am pleased to present the Northamptonshire Health and Wellbeing Annual Report, summarising the work overseen by the board during the year 2019 to 2020. So I'd assume that the report has been read, and just want to highlight very briefly some of the work that I think councillors will be interested in and impressed with that's taken place over the last 12 months. So it has been a productive year for the board, despite COVID, particularly in completing its statutory duties and providing strategic lead for the local health and care system. So this includes endorsement of the Better Care Fund Plan 2019-2020, overseeing publication of the Directors of Public Health Annual Report, and endorsing additions made to the Joint Strategic Needs Assessment, the JSNO. Along with hosting a number of development sessions aimed at supporting development and delivery of partnership working and an integrated approach to healthcare across the county. We've had, as I say, despite the tremendous issues around COVID, a good year with respect to keeping up our duties. The report also highlights the work being led, as we've heard previously, by Lucy Whiteman, the Director of Public Health, in developing Northamptonshire Health, Care and Wellbeing Plans, which will incorporate the Joint Health and Wellbeing Strategy Refresh, which we're working on at the moment, which links in to another plan, which is the NHS long-term plan for England. The aim of this plan really is for the county to address factors that leads to health inequalities across our patch, but also look at how we can offer a higher provision of medical support, focusing on preventing illnesses and identifying and treating illnesses earlier. So the prevention agenda, vitally important. A little bit more detail, Health and Wellbeing Board subgroups. I've had a successful year in developing and overseeing initiatives across the county. Just a couple to include here: the Healthier Workplaces subgroup, the Mental Health Crisis Concordant has overseen lots of initiatives, and the Prevention Crisis Concordant has also been working very hard to reduce suicide prevention. The 7 health and wellbeing forums, you may or may not know that these exist. Clearly, they do presently, but their future is uncertain, given the move towards unitary. But the present 7 health and wellbeing forums across the county have all completed successful bids for the local Healthy Places Forum Fund. So they've got money now, some cash, to start looking at local projects to improve the health and wellbeing within their communities, led often by the voluntary sector. And details of these projects are in the report. So for the remainder of the 2021 time frame, the board, Health and Wellbeing Board, will continue to influence and build on the constructive partnerships already developed to further shape the integration of health and social care across the county. We'll also be looking at developing, as soon as possible, the publication of the Pharmaceutical Needs Assessment Refresh and the Northamptonshire Better Care Fund Plan for 2021. So a lot of work's gone on despite COVID. I'm very happy to take questions, councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Petford. I have Councillor Golby.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to Nick for obviously chairing the board. I attend and take part in the meetings, and Nick's mentioned a couple of times, you know, the work around health and healthcare integration, and the bigger system that we all try to aspire to get to that get to that place where the whole system is talking and working and listening to itself and responding accordingly. So in a lot of the local government reorganisation stuff, I've put the challenge a couple of times in so much as how does the system hold itself accountable for the governance around making sure we keep that progress that we can make in place? And the answer I've had is that, well, that's in place at the Health and Wellbeing Board. So I think the challenge as we move forward, especially into unitary, is how can we make sure we've got that good governance and oversight to keep that progress we're making as a system, because we have seen in the past that when times get tough and winter pressures come, and obviously we're expecting a real tough, strong winter this year with flu and COVID and everything else, that how the system keeps itself together. So it's just some thoughts and a query and a challenge for the future is the Health and Wellbeing Board needs to keep that system together, needs to keep talking so that coherence is carried on and it's able to challenge itself and respond to some of the pressures that we're going to come up against in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We've got Councillor McGee next.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't down particularly to speak at this, but Councillor Goldberg raises a very good point about governance and overseeing of these health issues in the long term. I for one, chair the local Corby Health Board forum you were talking about, and it's extremely difficult because, like the County Health and Wellbeing Board, we really oversee things. And I know Lucy White did give some funding to the forums as in the paper, and you mentioned, Nick, and that's extremely helpful to a board to be able to target some of the areas like I was talking about earlier, especially in Kingswood, because there's a good project there. But that's a little bit. And what the forums need, as well as a county-wide forum, is some bite, either some financial bite or some real say. That's what they need to be able to have, some backup to be able to do that sort of things. But talking about the governance, and I don't apologise for raising this yet again, Chair, because we just agreed the committees. There is no opposition on the Health and Wellbeing Board. And I do hope, although I'm not standing, when we go into the two unitaries, that we have two boards and the unitaries are strong enough to put the opposition on there so that they can have input and share that input, because that's extremely important across all the political divide. We're not there to cause trouble, we're there to help when it comes to health issues, and they should take that on board. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. We did have notification that Councillor Hales wanted to speak on this item.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Sorry about that. When I looked at the report, and when you look at, certainly on page 10, you've got the key achievements in 2019. But when I looked at your page 6 and the review of selection of business, it only ran from the 18th of July till the 20th of January. So I then had to get in touch with the officers. Then the April one was in the previous year's report. So maybe if you could tidy up what actual year you're talking. Does it run like the financial year, which I assumed, or the council year? But when you look in here on your achievements, it's all based on last year. And a lot of the work predicated, although COVID came in March this year, you know, a lot of the work when you said your pharmaceutical and the joint needs assessment is being updated, it's predicated once again with COVID, you know, and that COVID is really important going forward. But, you know, even for layman, I mean, I worked in health majority of my working life, so I don't mind going back at previous reports. But I mean, to the general public, we look at 19 and we think, well, excuse me, this report is 19 to 20. So going forward into the unitaries, can you ensure that the report reflects on the year you're talking about? Otherwise, you know, you just get lost in it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Got no further councillors. Did Mr. Petford want to comment on the councillors' points?
No, just to support what people are saying. On the last comment in particular, that was, I'm afraid there was a changeover in the administrative handling of the Health and Wellbeing Board. So apologies if there was some confusion. We'll make sure that the next report comes out does cover the full year, but rest assured that those points are all there in previous Health and Wellbeing annual reports to the Council. What I would say, while I have your attention, folks, is the Corby councillor mentioned that, John, the shape of the Health and Wellbeing Board post-unitary is interesting. Do we have one or do we have two? I think there is a favour towards having two, a West and a North. If that's the case, then how do we think carefully about what the present seven local health and wellbeing forums do, whether some of them need to merge, how they provide input into the two unitaries? Bearing in mind that COVID, of course, is and other pandemics, other illnesses are no respecters of arbitrary divisions in the middle of England. So how you maintain an integrated healthcare system for all the people of Northamptonshire, I think will be a tremendous challenge. I think Councillor Golby mentioned that as we move towards a unitary solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Would Councillor Morris like to sum up, please?
Well, I will just say that the report is in front of the Council for endorsement. Thank you, Chair. I think the Chair of the Board has very well summed up the situation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So I'll now ask Council if it would like to accept the advice and accept the report, and Mr. Hanson will once again put up.
Thank you, Chair. I'll launch the poll now. Members have 20 seconds to cast their vote. Chair, that's 46 for, none against and no abstentions.
Thank you, Council. It's unanimously approved. Thank you very much. And I think it's just another example to show the closer working together of the whole sector, which is to be welcomed, obviously. So we now move on to 9F, which is the Youth Justice Plan. And Councillor Baker will move this report, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. As the Chairman has said, I'm putting forward the Youth Justice Plan, the report for last year, and sorry, I've just... this report, as you will be aware, members, went to Cabinet last time, so you will have had plenty of opportunity to read and digest the contents of it. So I was just going to highlight some improvements, some significant achievements that we've made this year. We've maintained contact with all clients and kept all core business happening throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. And the YOS has been creative in the way in which appointments and interventions are delivered by using technology and virtual options. The youth courts were closed at the end of March and reopened on the 9th of June 2020. Strong working relationships with judiciary has been maintained during this period. The Knife Crime Initiative is embedded into day-to-day practice, successfully implemented an accredited knife crime programme, which is delivered to all young people within the Youth Offending Service. A strong performance against national indicators reduced the use of custody. We've maintained the reduced numbers for first-time entrants and reduced the rate of reoffending below the national and regional comparators. Work with local services and agencies to ensure a robust, strategic and operational approach to child exploitation, missing children, county lines and gang offending. Collaborative working with the police to strengthen the prevention and diversion scheme and to interrogate reoffending data. This answers some of the questions put previously, Chair. So I hope that will be satisfactory to members who ask those questions. We have had long discussions about the Children's Trust. And following consultations with all of our statutory partners and council leaders for the West and the North, we can confirm that the Northamptonshire Youth Offending Service will be delivered through the newly created Children's Trust, which will be operational from November 2020. As far as the finances of this service are concerned, the OSS operates a pooled partnership budget, which you can see laid out quite clearly, I think on page 17 of the report. And we have contributions across the partnership. The most significant financial pressure on the partnership over the 12 months has been the costs associated with young people being remanded in youth detention accommodation. Funding from this is devolved from the Youth Custody Service to the County Council, and the formula is based upon previous year's usage data. Having had relatively low remand figures, these have risen, causing pressure on the budget to set the basis for a lower demand. The budget for the current financial year has increased by £56,630 to £262,289. The priorities for 2021 are to make significant improvements with performance, and we have been able to do this over the past 8 months and will be continuing to do so. Many of these improvements have been quarantine in nature. Focus over the next 12 months will be on the qualitative improvements. Improve the prevention offer to young people at risk of entering criminal justice system. Invest in trauma-informed practice. Prevent the over-criminalisation of children in care and support their life chances. Monitoring disproportionately and responding to any over-representation strategically and operationally. Increase resources for and the effectiveness of support to the not in educational training or education young people, and respond to the significant issues of serious youth violence offences involving weapons and other emerging priorities, and continue to address disproportionately and any over-representations. I was very pleased to see the young man who came along earlier, even if it was that he had criticisms of our service. It's very encouraging to see young people who want to be involved with these things. And this is a very good step forward, I think. I'd like to put this report to the members.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Councillor Brackenbury to second, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to second this report. It's very good to see the achievements in the plan and as highlighted by Councillor Baker. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have some councillors with questions. Councillor Birch, first of all.
Thank you, Chair. The Youth Offending Service is a statutory partnership with stated aims of fundamentally to prevent offending by children and young people. Educational projects and support around child exploitation, mental health, county lines, drugs and gangs is being undertaken by various providers. We all know that education in all its forms is vital to building resilience, preventing and diverting young people from damaging behaviours. Early intervention is always more effective and preferable than dealing with a crisis situation. We need to evaluate and learn from all the current programmes that are in operation. Earlier, Thomas and Jodie Law spoke powerfully about pressures faced by young people and the uncertain future faced by this generation. This range from boredom to threatening and violent situations. I think this provides us with clear evidence that of the value and need of work around prevention. Increased integration and strengthening of partnerships working appears to be a future aim. And from my readings of reports today and listening to what's been said this morning and this afternoon, this is emerging as a real risk to the delivery of many multi-agency services. So I think the partnership working is going to be absolutely vital as we move forward into unitary, where partnerships may be stretched to fragmentation. Children in need in care and leaving care are disproportionately represented in the Youth Offending Service. We should do all we can to address this in order to prevent a future generation of people who have very few life choices and life chances and opportunities to make the most of their abilities and talents. Now, this service we've just had confirmation of will transfer to the new Children's Trust in November. This trust, we must be confident, is robust and secure, protect and prevent all our looked after children from criminalisation and exploitation. And I think that has to be something that I personally would ask for regular updates on, because I think we have some fragility in the senior management and leadership of the Children's Trust at the moment. And this is a service that is vital to be seen to be effective and well managed and do the job properly. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Councillor McGee, next, please.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome the report, Chair, and I was looking at the KPIs, and there is some good movement within the KPIs. But what I would like to see in the future is a breakdown of the KPIs by our districts and boroughs. Even when we go into unitaries, and we'll have the north and the west, it's still important to break them down so that we can target, as we should do in health, the areas where there is bigger problems, because we know, unfortunately, young people in crime mainly come from areas of deprivation. So it's a big round circle that we all have to tick off. So if that could be done in the future, I'd appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And we stay in call with Councillor Stanborough.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, I listened with interest to Thomas Prophet when he was speaking on this morning. I thought it was a very good challenge from him as to what perhaps is not in the report. He's clearly a young person, and if a young person has read the report and finds there's nothing to divert young people from crime, then I think we've got a problem. There's clearly much work to do, which is good because in a way it links into the motion from Councillor Stone later on, and I was pleased to hear that the administration are likely to support it, because that's surely a first starting point into addressing the issues that Thomas Prophet raised. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stanborough. So, Councillor Baker, if you'd like to sum up, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Birch, probably I couldn't see a particular question to be answered there, but I do want to assure her that I, myself and our team share all of those concerns that she has. We are all in a position of wanting things to be better for our young people. Nobody wants to see these young people involved in crimes, knife crimes, drugs, whatever. We all want them to have a really good life. That is the aim that we are all striving towards. And Councillor McGee's point of the breakdown, I agree with him too, that I think it would be really important to see where the hotspots are, if we're talking in the hotspots that we talk about now, for this as well as every other thing that we're dealing with. So that we know where to target the support best. And so that's it. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. So can I ask Council if they accept the advice, accept the report, please? And Mr. Hanson will do his bit.
Thank you, Chair. Poll now, members have 20 seconds to cast their votes. Yeah, that's 43 for, 0 against and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, Council. That's once again unanimous. We now move on to 9G, which are amendments to the Constitution. Councillor Bowen, to move the report, please.
Yes. My computer is about to run out of battery, so I'm hoping everybody can hear me on there. Would you like to sit over there, Councillor Bowen?
You can shout.
You don't have to, I just wondered if you. Yeah, okay.
Councillor Goldberg's got a microphone as well. Just having a reshuffle in. Thanks, my glamorous assistant.
Right. Hello everyone. I've moved over here because my battery's just about to die on my computer. So this is the report by the monitoring officer, and we're obliged under the Constitution to keep this under constant review, and it is an amendment to the Constitution. And in essence, what we're asking you to agree to is the adoption of additional procedures regarding remote meetings. And you will see in your documents, pages 44 to 48, there is a comprehensive list of guidelines there to assist you in preparing for the meetings, and also, which is very thorough, if there's anything that goes wrong, what needs to happen in terms of the solution and whether that meeting will actually be quorate. So I think that's a really, really good document, and very pleased to present that. The other area that I need to point out is the changes required in Part 3 scheme of the delegation. And these changes relate to job titles, structures, reporting lines of senior officers, and it's important under this delegation that it accurately reflects the management structure. So in this report, what we're asked to do is delegate the power to the monitoring officer to make any changes as required in the paragraph above 4.1. So that really is it from me. I'm not intending to go into any more detail unless anybody's got any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Patel, the second, please.
Can you please to second the report, Mr. Chairman?
Okay, thank you. Any councillors wishing to speak? I have Councillor Gonzalez de Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As always, our monitoring officer has been incredibly diligent and most professional, and I will be missing her when she goes down to the southern counties of our great country. Mr. Chairman, may I ask the question in terms of, I appreciate the participation from a member's perspective at remote meetings, and I'm sure Councillor Brown will realise the importance of my question. How are we also tackling the issue going forward? Because I am sure that this will be now a part of our future for quite some time, of participation by the public, because we saw this morning Mrs. Lineker, obviously, who had great difficulty in linking in with systems, and I think we really ought to be using a better system, if we possibly can, to encourage public participation. We may not be able to be present in the room, I absolutely appreciate that, but is it possible to perhaps open the chamber for, say, speakers of the public and social distance them, so there is opportunity for them to participate? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I've got nobody else wanting to speak, so if Councillor Bowen would like to respond.
Thank you, Councillor Gonzalez de Savage. The issues around technology and whether somebody has a difficulty in accessing the meeting is actually outlined in those documents, page 43 to 46. What I would say is that on that particular situation that happened this morning with Jean Lineker, Paul Hanson and his team were actually on the phone to Jean Lineker. So should there be a difficulty, then everything will be done to try and make that connection work. If it doesn't work and it is of significant importance, then the monitoring officer would then raise it with the appropriate personnel to say the meeting or the discussion on that particular item cannot go ahead. But everything is normally done to make it work. As we know, sometimes things do fall off the end and connections are broken, etc. But as long as it's quorate, then it goes ahead. If it's not quorate, then our monitoring officer would tell us so.
Thank you. Yes, the officers made every effort and will continue to make every effort to ensure that anybody can access. And of course, people can phone, just use a normal phone in, as well as use the online facilities. So can I ask Council if they accept the advice in the report with the amendments to the Constitution? And once again, the poll is launched, I think.
Thank you, Chair. I've launched the poll and members will have 20 seconds to cast their votes. Yeah, that's 44 votes for, none against and no abstentions.
Thank you. That is unanimous again. Councillor Gonzalez de Savage, your hand is still raised. Were you looking to say something again? Or?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My point, and I appreciate the answer there from Councillor Bowen, was also in terms of using County Hall from an opportunity, the Chamber of County Hall, for perhaps say 10 speakers of the public or a representative sample of the public who are notified in advance where there'd be sufficient space.
We've gone ahead and voted on this now.
Yeah. No, sorry, I appreciate. I'm not. I'm in support of the recommendations, but I just think we really could be doing with bringing County Hall back into use as well.
Thank you, Councillor Gonzalez de Savage. I'm sure officers will note that, and if possible in the future, they will do that. So we'll move on to item 9H, which is the Climate Change and Carbon Management and Environment Progress Update. Councillor Smithers.
Thank you, Chair. It gives me great pleasure to move this report we present to Council today. This report provides an update on the excellent partnership work that has been underway across the county today to tackle the causes and effects of climate change in Northamptonshire. On pages 50 and 51 of the report, you will see there's various outline things that we've done to benefit the communities across Northamptonshire, such as a successful approach using our Smart Move Northamptonshire initiative, which includes various elements to help raise awareness of low carbon models of transport and travel across the county. There's also parts there where we've engaged with our partners in the Woodlands Trust and delivered trees planted across the county. Over 250,000 trees have been planted. And those have been run by community groups, schools, parish councils and landowners. Moving on a little bit further, the Northampton Energy Savings Service, known as NESS, which is a 3-year project which runs right through to 2021, helped address fuel poverty across Northamptonshire. Over £1.2 million of funding was secured from NCC from the National Grid's Warm Homes Fund. So, really helping the most needy and vulnerable within our society there. Supporting our schools as well with both energy procurement and statutory energy measures, including successful ZCOS EU-funded projects, which target schools to reduce their energy consumption and installed a number of biomass boilers across the county schools. National Energy Action, again, is a national fuel poverty charity which we've worked with organisations and local authorities through the Northampton Warm to Home Partnership to develop the Northampton Community Directory, which provides details of all agencies offering energy efficiency, fuel debt and other related support to vulnerable households. Again, more great examples how this administration and authority has worked hard to deliver these type of things. So the report pretty much focuses upon carbon emission reductions made by the County Council over the last decade and actions required to enable the authority to become carbon neutral by 2030 in response to the climate emergency declaration made by Cabinet in 2019, June 2019, let's say. The report also notes the refreshed partnership climate change strategy for Northamptonshire 2020 to 2023. The County Council has made substantial 72% reduction in carbon emissions since 2008 to 2009, together with £9.6 million in energy savings as a result of concerted actions to reduce energy usage in our assets. In order to meet the County Council's 2030 target of becoming carbon neutral, more needs to be done, and a number of opportunities have been identified to meet this challenge, including planting an additional 300,000 trees and investing in green energy technology such as solar PV. We need to work with partners to achieve this target and support further carbon emission reductions across Northamptonshire, As such, the climate change strategy for Northamptonshire 2020 to 2023 highlights what can be done if we work in partnership with other public, private and voluntary organisations. As we all know, this authority is soon coming to an end, and therefore we will be passing over the environmental baton to the two new authorities. I ask that the incoming leadership teams in these new authorities to embrace the immediate climate emergency this county and world faces. There is no plan B. We need to make all changes in our lifestyle to secure the planet for future generations. Let's not be a generation that did nothing. Let's keep it firmly on the political agenda and keep pushing forward with the new and innovative ideas, no matter how hard they may seem at first. But if you ever feel like it's just too hard to take those changes, take a look at your children, take a look at your grandchildren, and ask, what do you want to leave behind for them? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Frederick. I'll ask Councillor Adam Brown to second the motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to your new position. I'm sure you'll do a fine job, and I'm grateful to Councillor Smithers for mentioning the future and the responsibility that will fall on the shoulders of the new authorities. I'm already starting to bear some of that burden of responsibility in my role as the chair of the Environment Task and Finish Group for West Northamptonshire. And whilst the issue of climate change is not something that we alone can solve, it's certainly not an issue that we can afford to ignore. I'm aware that members have had an awful lot of reading to do in advance of this meeting, and if anyone in this meeting today has not had time to read this report, I would ask them to focus at the very least on page 75 of the pack onwards, where the impact of climate change is outlined. Councillor Smithers very eloquently alludes to the future and the generations who are yet to come. I'm sure many members on this call today will have children and grandchildren who they are concerned about and whose futures they are concerned about. Some of us indeed will have children who are yet to be born who we're concerned about. And those generations deserve to be able to breathe clean air. They deserve to grow up in a Northamptonshire that enjoys immense biodiversity. And to that end, I think we can celebrate the fact that this county council has already planted 250,000 trees in the last few years. They also deserve to grow up in a county that values the planet's natural resources and that implements planning regimes that ensure that energy isn't misused or wasted over the course of our natural lives. I applaud the fact that this report before us acknowledges the action and also the adaptations that we need to make. Action in the form of moving towards a carbon neutral or a carbon zero situation for our local government, but also adaptation to the situations that we cannot influence alone, such as the horrendous flooding that could come along in the future if the powers that be above us do not tackle the situation that we are facing. So I do acknowledge the fantastic work that's taken place thus far. Northamptonshire County Council has made immense strides in reducing its carbon emissions. I think we are in many ways real front runners in the battle against climate change. Certainly the baselining model, the ISO model that's already been implemented at the County Council is something that I'm very keen to move forward into West Northamptonshire. And I'm very keen that the culture of climate awareness that is taking root in the County Council is also something that transfers over to our new councils. The one minor point that I would suggest is lacking from the report is when we come to our duty and indeed the stated objective of raising awareness of climate change. I think we need to spell out more comprehensively how we can cooperate with the private sector to facilitate their contributions towards tackling this climate emergency and their impact upon the environment. It's certainly a mighty challenge that we all face, but as Councillor Smith has said before me, it's something that we simply have to front up to, and we owe a debt of responsibility to the generations that will come after us to do our very, very best to tackle this problem.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. I've got a number of speakers. We were advised by Councillor Strachan in advance that he wanted to speak. Is he there?
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, and thank you, Chairman, and congratulations on your appointment. What else could I add, Chairman? Except to say I welcome this report. This is an excellent report, which I thoroughly enjoyed reading. It covers a wide range of issues related to climate change, the challenges going forward, and solutions. Apart from that, Chairman, there's not much one could say. I'm following Councillor Brown, quite frankly. He's touched on almost anything one can possibly think about. On page 52, Chairman, the first bullet point, 4.2, I guess we talked about subsequently delivering over £2 million in income generated by the council. For the council, I wonder, could someone explain to me how that came about, please? And on page 53, on 5.4, right at the bottom, there's a few words there that I don't quite understand. Meteorological of setting. What does that mean? Could somebody explain that to me, please? That's it. Thank you very much.
Next, Councillor Stanborough, as indicated before.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this is a good report in that it sets out what I think was asked by the motion, which is to talk about what the County Council has done to address the issues raised by the motion on climate change that we had in June 2019. And I think the time has come perhaps to look more at what will be done in the future. And I appreciate that won't just be by the County Council, that will be by the successor authorities. And I'll return to that in a couple of seconds. Couple of issues that have come to sort of my mind on this. One is that in regards to development and the built environment in particular, unless things like our motion on climate change are incorporated into our planning policies at the County Council and at district and borough councils, there's limited scope to apply those concerns when deciding planning applications. And that's going to be a challenge, I think, for the successor authorities to make sure that they do that so that such principles can be applied. Interesting to hear Councillor Brown talk about the Environment Task and Finish group that he leads in the West, and I'm glad they're doing some good work. I'm hoping we might have a similar body in the North fairly soon, but we'll have to see. So all in all, it's welcomed, but I look forward, this is obviously takes us up to March 2020. I look forward to the second report that the motion called for, which said that no more than 12 months thereafter, setting out further actions that have been taken and detailing how progressing this target has been communicated to and integrated within the startup plans of its successor councils, that is the North and the West Unitaries. So look forward to the next report before we cease to exist. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kilbride.
Thank you, Chair. I've got three questions, if I may, to Jason. The first one being is, I see that Coventry City Council has paused the e-scooter trials after 5 days due to safety concerns. Would it not be prudent for Northamptonshire County Council to do the same, judging by how the trial is going in Northampton at the present time, with much of the scooters being misused?
Sorry, carry on, do all your three questions, or Councillor
Oh,
Smithers.
at the same time, okay. The second one is, many councillors last night received electric vehicle charging points information. I'd like to ask Councillor Smithers, is there any charge points being put in Higham Ferrers? Which is the second question. And the third one being is, for those cyclists in Higham Ferris, are there any plans for cycle lanes to be put in there? Because we know the benefits of cycling. And will there be any road changes in Higham Ferris as well? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hakewill.
Thank you, Chairman. I very much pick up Councillor Brown's point. Now with 3 children and 6 grandchildren, when you talk to them, they are amazingly aware of climate change, and correctly, we have every need to look after their interests. Question number 1 for Councillor Smithers is, how likely are we to achieve carbon zero by 2030? When we talk about planting 250,000 or 300,000 trees, I know it might be difficult, but I'm sure the Woodland Trust would do something to create the data. It sounds like a phenomenal amount, but if there's 20 million trees in Northamptonshire already and we plant 250,000, that is good, but we ought to have some sort of relevance to how many there are already and how much of a difference that might make. Equally, Councillor Stanborough talked about the built development. So many of us, and I'll more or less guarantee every councillor sat here, has seen trees put into housing developments which subsequently block out the light of those houses, drop their leaves on the pavement, have to be picked up. I think we should much more have areas around or near to but accessible to housing estates where trees can be planted and grow in their natural environment without actually crowding out the residential environment. Something like People's Woods, even woods where you can plant a tree to remember somebody. So it would be good to have a basis on that. I was pleased with Councillor Stanborough to move the climate emergency, and I welcome the focus that this report has come along as indeed it was promised. I always have some concern when we talk about what we've done as opposed to what we should be doing and can be doing. We have to accelerate that. You look at Alaska, Siberia, Western United States and the Amazon, we have a massive, massive problem, and every single person in this room and in this county and this country can play a small part. So I think it's good to see this report coming, but we can all play a part in that, even small. Often people will say, well, if X country or Y country doesn't do it, why should we bother? We should bother because, as Councillor Brown says, and I think we all agree, our children rely on us to be able to do that. And I would also like to bring up the point of Councillor Kilbride about electric charging points. I don't know if there's another councillor here who has a completely electric car. It's just into my 2nd year. And I can tell you that it works very well for the right style of driving and amount of driving that you do. So welcome the report. Question, how likely 2030? Question, can we get a base data of trees when we talk about planting more? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hakewill. We have Councillor Griffiths next.
Thank you, Chairman, and congratulations for your appointment as Chairman. But I also sense a new spirit of cross-party cooperation today as well, and I think that's really important, especially on a subject as important as climate change, and I sincerely hope it stays that way. Just a couple of points about the report, which I think is an excellent report. We in Wellingborough at St Barnabas Street in the town are, I believe, the first to have a car-free zone. So we've got 170 parents and carers walking their kids to and from school, and the current signs are that this is looking to be a success. And Councillor Brown mentioned earlier about the risk of floods under climate change. Well, it happened. It happened in Wellingborough a month ago, almost to the day, where our streets became a torrent following a very bad storm that wouldn't move over our town for a month and deposited an hour and deposited a month's rainfall in that period of time. It's here. It's something we've got to be aware of, and I really do think it's important that that part of the report is given very serious consideration. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Well, I can agree with you on the school streets because it's in my division, and it was very well presented by the school, and the flood was in my division too. So I'm well aware of it. And you and I both know there are 70,000 trees in the borough of Wellingborough, so it gives some idea. Can I ask Councillor Andy Mercer next, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to endorse the comments about the risks of flooding. Flooding is going to get worse. It's going to affect Northamptonshire severely. It's going to cause us significant problems in the future. And we can't protect against it as much as we should because the cost will be just too high. We're going to end up having to follow the strategy of flood resilience, which is not anywhere near as good. My specific point is that we are, as a nation, are allowing more and more houses to be built in flood risk areas, and the areas of flood risk are going to increase. So instead of bequeathing a better situation to our children, we're likely to bequeath a slightly worse situation. We should be much more tough. Now, the government is proposing changing the way housing land is allocated. I would suggest this authority puts to the government that high priority should be placed upon avoiding putting those housing zones in areas that are at risk of flooding either now or in, say, 40, 50 years' time. We should be planning our housing areas to avoid the places that are going to be hit by climate change.
Thank you, Councillor Mercer. I'm not sure whether this council is going to respond to the planning consultation, but hopefully so. Can I ask Councillor Smithers to respond to the points, please?
Yeah, absolutely, Chair. Thank you so much. Firstly, Councillor Strachan, thank you very much for welcoming the report. That's very kind of you. We are trying our best to do what we can with it, so that's very welcome. Regarding your questions, I will get back to you on those via email. So I want to be able to give you the correct data that you request. So please bear with me on that. Councillor Stanborough, thank you very much. I would say the planning policy needs to take into the unitaries our ambition around the environmental ambitions that each sovereign councils, be it the north, be it the west, wants to take on board, and that would be down to individuals, elected individuals, to mandate that sort of workload throughout them new authorities. So something that you could certainly have a lead on when you're in the North Authority. Councillor Kilbride, I'm looking at your points raised about Coventry City Council pausing their e-scooter trial. I'm not sure why they've done that they have their reasons, but needless to say that in Northamptonshire, our scooter trial is going exceptionally well. And apart from a few minor issues in the early days, you know, there's been over 2,500 sign-ups now for these trial, and again, fits in beautifully with the carbon travel options that we wish to offer in this county. Your second point, charging points in high-end fair as well. That'd be somewhere that I'd like to see some. And of course, if they come through, they go through the consultation process, and members of the public in high-end fairs will have their chance to have their voices heard through that consultation process. So, yeah, and same with cycle lanes. You know, if we decide to have cycle lanes in high fairs again, of course, that will go to a consultation, and quite happily, the people at high fairs would probably, would enjoy engaging with us on that. So I hope that answers your questions. Councillor Hakewell, carbon zero emission target likely? Yes, I think we need to be ambitious about it. If we were to say today we don't think it's likely, then we might as well shut up shop now. But yes, so I'm going to say I think it's very likely, and would encourage any future authority to push hard to realise that goal and date. Baseline on the trees. there's quite a few trees. If you look on your report on page 54, paragraph 6.1, you can see in 6.2 and 6.3, it tells you there about the trees that we have. The authority has around 600,000 trees, which are in our county parks and along our highways. So, that's all in the report. So if you want to have a look at that, please feel free. Councillor Griffiths, take on board your recent issues in Wellingborough. And again, as you can see, that in paragraph 3.8 and some of the bullet points underneath go to look at what we're doing to try and make people aware of potential flooding and what we're doing to attract money into the county to try and help. Councillor Mercer, I think your questions are more generic around the national picture and the government white paper on planning and where we look to build houses. I think from an authority point of view, the county council can have an input into that and give its views. But again, that's something that will be taken up by the new unitaries, and maybe that's something we need to lobby government and our MPs to take into consideration where we build houses and where they are related to flooding areas. But I think that's all the questions answered. So happy to recommend this report to council.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Smithers. If we could move to the vote to accept the report, please, Ms. Hanson.
Thank you, Gerald. Launch the poll for that item. And 20 seconds to cast their votes. That's 41 for, none against and no abstentions.
Okay, thank you. Once again, unanimously passed. We now move to item I, Treasury Management Outturn Report. Councillor Longley, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and congratulations to you as on achieving the chair. Let's hope you can actually have a proper year. We'll see. Yes, anyway.
Thank you.
Right, this is the Treasury report, as you all well know, and it's a summary of the borrowings and effectively the maturity schedule. The important points on it are that there's a £24 million repayment, scheduled repayment this year, which will take place, which roughly balances the borrowings that are likely to take place with the capital investments for the year. But what probably the most important thing of all, I think, is that if one is to look at the repayment schedule, then over the next 80 plus years, our next 30 plus years, there's 84 million to be paid back. So once this year is cleared, then the repayments for the next 30 years are really quite small, which is a golden opportunity for the unitaries. So I would very much like to move this report, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Clark if you'd second, please?
Pleased to second, Mr. Chairman. Just to add to what Councillor Longley has just said, I've always regarded Treasury Management as one of perhaps the best and most efficient sections of the County Council. It delivers year after year for us and for our council taxpayers. These are unsung heroes, and it's not really a very high profile area of the council's activities. Nevertheless, a very important one. In addition to what Councillor Longley said, I just draw the council's attention to point 6.6, which highlights the repayment of LOBO loans. These were expensive, and the council's been on a journey to try and reduce dependency on that. There is evidence here of a further repayment of £10 million, which I think is worth noting. There's evidence in plenty of the way this directorate's been run, and I'm pleased to second the report.
Thank you. I have a note that Councillor Scrimshaw wanted to contribute.
Yeah, excuse me. Yes, thank you, Chair. For me, this report was interesting because it highlighted national concerns regarding the reduction in local councils' income, which I think is something that we're all well aware of, and then explains that the government's response to that, or part of the government's response to that, has been to increase the rates councils pay on some loans from the Public Works Loan Board, and to ban loans from the PWLB for commercial investment, which of course a lot of councils up and down the country had used to gain new income to replace the reduction in income that's causing such a concern across the country. However, I wonder, and I don't know if Malcolm would know or if there's any officers here, am I right in thinking that while councils will not be able to borrow money purely for commercial investment, regardless of how good or bad their business case might be, they can still borrow money for investment projects that provide a return or surplus if that investment was also providing added social value? Because if so, that has the possibility of not only helping a council's finances, but would also have a clear and direct effect on local communities. And if so, it might be something that this and other councils need to very seriously consider either now or as unitaries later. And speaking of the two new unitaries, there's been lots of talk, hasn't there, about the legacy debt of this council on the two new unitaries. And whenever I'm asked about the level of that, I always reply that it depends exactly what you mean by debt. But this report, however, shows clearly that the level of debt from borrowing is well over 500 million and will remain with the new councils for over 50 years, with over 3/4 of those loans not currently planned to be paid off for over 30 years, which again Malcolm has just sort of referred to. But I would be very interested to see how those loans are split between the two authorities. Will it be simply split 50-50? Will it be done proportionately per sort of head of population? Or indeed, will the cost of each individual capital project be looked at and a calculation of debt worked out per project and allocated to a geographical area? I don't know if those discussions are going ahead, but if the finance portfolio has any idea about what's being discussed on that issue, I'd be very interested for any update that he may be able to give. Thank you.
Thank you. I know the councillors, but the Chief Executive has indicated she might like to come in before the response.
Thank you, Chair. I can answer one of your questions, I hope, Councillor Scrimshaw, and I think Barry will be happy to answer your other question. In terms of the changes to the PWLB borrowing arrangements, and again, it's still, the consultation's still in discussion and we haven't actually seen the final regs yet. However, these things always come out in dribs and drabs and get leaked out. So what I'm hearing very clearly is there won't be an allowance to borrow for yield only. And if you do decide to ignore the rules and borrow for yield purposes, you will then be considered to have, the words used was carried out a misdemeanor is the word that's used. And you will not be allowed to borrow again for the rest of that year. So I don't think too many people will be committing misdemeanors. Also, I know it states that if you decide to go ahead with a yield deal, that postdates the time that the consultation was actually published. That is considered a misdemeanor. However, if you were in the middle of a deal when it was published, you would not be considered to have broken the rules. You can still borrow and purchase commercial properties if it's for regeneration purposes. So, for example, if you wanted to buy a shopping centre because you wanted to reconfigure it and build houses on some of it, knock a bit of it down and regenerate an area, that would be considered regeneration rather than yield. Obviously, you'd want to make a profit as well, but that's secondary in those cases. So the full details are not yet published, and there's quite a lot of nuances around what you can still do. So you can still do quite a lot, but there's quite a few nuances around that. You have to be really, really careful. So that's as much as we know at the moment, but I'm sure we'll get more details very soon. And Barry is going to respond to your second question around disaggregation. So I'll hand over to Barry.
Yes, thank you, Chief Executive. And our 151 Officer Barry Scarr will add to the answers.
Thank you, Chair. The borrowing and treasury management is used to finance assets which are built through the capital programme. So the first step on disaggregation is to disaggregate those assets, and the task and finish groups in both North and West have 3 principles of disaggregation. So when those assets are disaggregated, a technical calculation known as a capital financing requirement will be done, and the loans will be split along that capital financing requirement based on the asset allocation for each authority. We will do a further calculation, which is a bit more technical, to make sure that on the split of the loans, there's an equity across North and West on both maturity dates and interest rate as well, so no council receives either an advantage or a disadvantage on the allocation of those loans.
Thank you. I think we've had all the councillors now, so if Councillor Longley would like to sum up,
yeah,
if there's anything to add.
Yeah. I'll just make a comment on the commercial. Going back a number of years, I was given the job of looking at commercial investment for NCC, and my recommendation came back was not to do it. Forget it. It was a bad way to go for us, and in fact we didn't, and that's why we're not in the commercial investment business. So that was dealt with, oh gosh, probably 4 years ago or so. So now moving on, as I say, the 2 unitaries have a golden opportunity here with the next 30 years to do whatever they wish to do with that debt. There's virtually no repayments back of any consequence, and it depends very much on what these councils decide to do. They could pay off debt, or they could live with it, or whatever they want to do. So that, but they have the opportunity to go in whatever direction they should choose. Finally, I would have, if I had been asked instead of Barry of what the disaggregation of the debt would be, my answer to you, Mick, would have been fairly and equitably. I'm quite sure that's the case. So thank you, Chair. That's I'd move this report, please.
Thank you. So can I now ask Council if they accept the report, please?
Chair, I'll launch the poll for that item. We've got 20 seconds to cast their vote. Chair, that's 40 votes in favour, none against and no abstentions.
Thank you. Once again, unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We now move on back to Councillor Longley for the next item, J, flexible use of capital receipts policy.
Thank you, Chair. Well, this is effectively a snapshot in time, really, and it's I like to call it a productivity report, and it's using capital receipts to improve the revenue account. And this is really a statement of where we are on that at this tick of the clock. It is a snapshot in time. You've heard me banging on about productivity all the time, every time I get the opportunity, particularly when I'm putting the budget together. And it's called transformation within county council speak. I always call it productivity, same thing. And I'm pleased to see that the unitaries have just appointed 2 individuals. I think just the names are Lisa Hyde and Jane Carr to cover this. So it's very much uppermost in everybody's mind. Productivity is the way forward. It's been part of our success the last couple of years, and hopefully will be remain so with the unitaries. The detail is in there. There's a lot of detail in this report, and if anybody wants any specific, then please let me know.
Thank you. Councillor Clark, please. Second.
Just briefly, Mr. Chairman, to add to that, we've come a long way since the misery of 2016, 17, and early 18, when there were a lot of question marks raised about the application of capital receipts onto the revenue account. I think you can say the lesson has been well and truly learned. We're doing an awful lot of correct transformation, and the evidence of that is in the figures that you've got before you. Please, a second.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Stanborough.
Thank you, Chair. Quick question, and Councillor Clark just alluded to it. In the past, we've been tripped up by the flexible use of capital receipts when it comes to audits, and I'm just wondering if this strategy has been run by Ernst & Young, whether they've approved it or not.
Okay, thank you. I have no other councillors, so I'll go back to Councillor Longley to sum up.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. We're all acutely aware of history, I can assure you of that. And you'll be very pleased to know that we've got two very capable commissioners that cover these sort of things. There's nothing we could do that we wouldn't put past them anyway. I mean, they're very, very helpful to it. As to whether it's the details are specifically being passed to you and why, I don't know. Offhand, Barry probably would, but I don't know. But there'd be nothing here that wouldn't be very much laid on the table.
I'm told we can get a technical answer from our 151 officer, so be helpful, I'm sure. So, Mr. Scarr.
Thank you, Chair. The changes to the flexible use of capital receipts strategy, just to give some context, have been driven in the main by changes to savings as a result of COVID, which have dramatically changed the transformation profile of the council. So we thought it best to bring the full strategy back to full council in the interest of transparency, and it is down to full council to approve the strategy. Obviously, we remain in constant contact with Ernst & Young, who wouldn't, as a matter of course, seek their approval to make a change, in that they will audit things retrospectively rather than give approval before the act, because it's a retrospective auditing function that they carry out, rather than agree stuff in advance of the audit of that year's accounts. So they are aware of the changes that we're making, and they've raised no issues about them, but they wouldn't, as a matter of course, approve them or disapprove them until the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. So, now the contribution. So, can I ask Council if they accept the report, please?
We'll come back, Chair.
If you would like.
I would just like to say that Barry's got a good point there. If the auditors are part of the decision, they can hardly be auditors. So I move the report.
Thank you. So we'll launch the poll on that one.
Thank you, Chair. I've launched the poll. Members will have 20 seconds to cast their votes. Chair, that's 41 votes for, none against and no abstention.
Okay, thank you. Council unanimous again. Now we move to item K, which is regarding the scrutiny for Horton General Hospital. Ask Councillor Bowen to.
Yeah, okay, so just a very brief summary. This is all about amended terms of reference for the Horton Hospital. This probably won't be of interest to those further north in the county, or indeed in the middle, but for those that are on the western side of the county, particularly towards Brackley and Middleton Shingle and that sort of area. This has been a really contentious issue and has caused a great deal of upset. Because the hospital was basically downgraded in terms of its offering, particularly on maternity and the other obstetric support. So what this is a sort of a revised terms of reference, because health services are actually required to consult a local authority health opioid scrutiny committee. So because Banbury is on the border of three counties, Oxford, Northamptonshire and Warwickshire, it is obliged to consult with those three. So what happened in 2017 is Oxford CCG made a decision to create a single obstetric unit affecting those three counties. And that for those in our county means a minimum drive of 40 minutes, probably going up to an hour during the winter, and in more traffic, should there be a problem with their maternity, birth, etc. So you can imagine how difficult and how contentious that is. So as part of the Horton Master Plan, Oxford University Hospital and local stakeholders must work together to actively improve the significant capital investment and revise the terms of reference for the further scrutiny of the Horton General Hospital. So I am pleased to propose this report, but I'm sure my colleague Rebecca Breeze will also wish to say something on this because she's been asked to present it and she lives very close to this hospital.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. If I could ask Councillor Breeze to second the motion.
Thank you. I am actually on voice only because of demands on our internet with other workers in my premises at the moment. As Councillor Bowen has so succinctly summed up, the Horton is a very important facility for the residents at the southernmost part of the district. Prior to the decision to remove the consultant-led services, circa 150, 200 babies from Northamptonshire were born at the Horton every year. Now, if you have an issue or need of a consultant, you do have to travel down to the JR. The opposition to the creation of the midwife-led unit has been vociferous, been through many, many inquiries, consultations that were deemed inadequate at judicial review, reconsulted upon, and at the moment the existing state of play is that it's sitting with the Secretary of State to come back on the adequacy of previous consultations. That's 18 months. We haven't heard anything. It's time now to move on. The Oxford University Hospital Trust has offered a master plan to look at capacity and growth projections in North Oxfordshire and the adjoining postcodes. Master plans take many years. There'll be a lot of work, and it's very important that we can contribute through the HOSC to the evolving master plan, and hopefully the ultimate ambition, the reprovision of obstetric-led, consultant-led obstetric services. So I'm very pleased to second this item, which adjusts the terms of reference to take that into account. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. We've nobody asking to speak. Do you, oh, Councillor Baker's just asked, come up. Councillor Baker.
Just to reiterate all those comments that my colleague Councillor Breeze has said, both I and she took over when I moved into the Cabinet, have been striving for many years to get a maternity unit operational properly in Banbury, which is just 10 minutes away from those people who live in Brackley, Middleton, Cheney, Kings Sutton, and all the other little villages around. Saying to people they've got to go to the JR in Oxford is a very daunting task, and the traffic situation to get to that hospital is very, very difficult at the best of times. We have been fighting hard, but it seems now it has ground to a halt with government, which is a shame because in my view, it gives the hospital trust an opportunity to have their own way. So I'm sure that Councillor Breeze is on this, and I'm looking forward to her still carrying on the fight for maternity services in Banbury. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Do you wish to add anything, Councillor Bowen?
No, I don't do actually. I think that's said it all really.
Okay, thank you. I'll put it to Council then. Do you want to accept the recommendation regarding the revised terms of reference?
Chair, I've launched the poll. It's not 20 seconds to cast their votes. So that's 38 for, none against, and 1 abstention.
Okay. Thank you, Council. That resolution is passed. And we now move on to item I, the designation of the monitoring officer. And Councillor Golby is going to move this report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm pleased to put this report to Council and note and ask that Council approves the designation of the Interim General Counsel, Edwina Atafahinti, as the Monitoring Officer for Northamptonshire County Council with effect from 25th September 2020. So the report is obviously needed to come before council because Susan Zeiss is leaving us, and I must add, at the lunch break, we did have a little presentation. Myself and the Chief Exec said a few words about Susan and thanked her for her excellent service over quite a short period of time, really, but there's been an awful lot happen at NCC within that short time and the massive amount of challenges that we've all faced. So I thank Susan appropriately there, but we need to look to the future. We've got a good monitor officer stepping in Edwina. I've already welcomed her and had a little chat at the beginning of last week, I think it was. The report sets out some of the roles and responsibilities of the office of the monitoring officer, which of course is a statutory position that we need to have filled. So I'm happy to present the report. Thank you. Councillor Bowen to second it, please.
Yes, I am pleased to second this report for Edwina. I think you pronounce it Adoniti. Is that right? Yes. I just wonder whether Edwina would like to just come and introduce herself very quickly so that people on the screen can meet her, know her face if they pass her in the corridor. So just come very quickly and just say hello to everybody. Hello, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we have a couple of councillors asking to speak. Councillor Hakewill, first of all.
Thank you, Chairman. I would really just like to, and I thought this was the right place in the agenda, to express my deep appreciation of Susan's work and efforts. Everybody reflects on the last few years, but there were certainly times when I felt that I needed someone who is impartial outside of the political or any other sphere to be able to talk to. And I think Susan took that role with complete balance and lack of partiality in any particular direction. So I would wish her all the best down on the South Coast. And I would also say that I really like the political balance of the council she's going to. Let's hope the future might be the same here in Northamptonshire. But thank you, Susan, and thank you, Chairman, for giving me the opportunity to reflect my appreciation.
Thank you, Councillor Hickman.
Thank you. Of course, that may mean trouble. Councillor Meredith.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Chair. I was just going to ask if we could see her on the screen so we know who it was, but it's already been done. But I'll say welcome to her anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Meredith. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I spoke earlier on about my thanks to Susan for all the work she'd done. And that was one of the main reasons which I wanted to speak on this item. But secondly, I'd like to welcome our new officer into place. I'm sure Edwina will find it a very challenging position, and I hope she's able to cope in the same way that Susan was able to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. So does Councillor Golby want to make any further comment, reply?
Just other than to welcome Edwina and thank Susan again and wish her well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So can I put that to Council, please, that we accept the report for the designation of a new monitoring officer?
Chair, I'll launch the polling. Members will have 20 seconds to cast their votes. Yeah, that's 39 votes for, none against, and no abstentions.
Again, Unanimous. Thank you, Council. So we move on to item 10, which is Cabinet business. You have 5 Cabinet reports there, and we have 30 minutes. We have no submitted questions. We have 30 minutes for any councillor wishing to ask a question. So for Councillor Stambro first.
I'd like to ask the leader a question on his report, if that's possible, Chair. Should I do that now?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay. So in the leader's report.
Sorry. We're on the Cabinet business. Sorry.
All right. So tell me when you start the report, then.
I do down as Cabinet business. Okay. Yeah. Do you? When we do that, yeah.
So questions on the leader's report?
Are you going to read the report, or
I won't read it. I just want to make a few comments.
Okay, so we'll go to the leader's report and make a few comments, but you should all have the report in your papers. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. So the report that I've sent around is based loosely on my address I presented this morning, which captures a lot of the essence of where I am, where the council is, and the challenges and progress we continue to demonstrate. The difference in my report is I've included some extra paragraphs which are at paragraph 13, 15, 16, 17 and 18, which cover off again another mention of Susan and the statutory roles and responsibilities in the appointments that some of our officers have gotten themselves into for the new Western North unitaries. To talk about the trust, some of the developments. I reference what happened at Cabinet last week. I also just want to point out the continued improvement in performance in children's services that we continue to see, and in the finances of children's services, which I should have put in here really, because one of the challenges a year ago, and it was a big challenge, and we spent a lot of time talking about it at Cabinet, was how we were going to bring the children's budget under control. And if you fast forward to where we are a year, the last Cabinet report showed an underspend in children's services of some £999,000. And I understand further progress, I hope, is going to be made in period 5 in terms of the financial situation across the board and indeed in children's. So I just wanted to mention that. Work on the trust, as Councillor Baker mentioned earlier, to launch on the 1st of November is well underway. I mentioned also the Gold Award that the Council received from the Ministry of Defence in recognition. It was actually the Defence Employer Recognition Scheme, and we received the Gold Award. I thought that's certainly worthy of mention. And I also referenced the passing of David Capel, the Northampton cricketer who was born and bred in Northamptonshire and was a loyal servant, only playing for one club, Northamptonshire, who of course went on to play for England. There's lots in the report, but I'm happy to take any questions from colleagues.
Thank you, Leader. I echo that about David Capel. As Secretary of the Northampton Cricket League, I met him on a few occasions and umpiring his son's club. Always very welcome, one of the first to come and greet you and say hello and thank you for what you've done, and a great servant to the county. Councillor Stambro, from now.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to refer to paragraph 30 of the Leader's report, which I think is the last paragraph, and the first sentence that reads, I, as Leader, with Cabinet, the administration, every willing elected member of this council, will continue to do everything we can to give the 2 new councils every opportunity to succeed. And that phrase, every willing member, was one that was also used by the Leader in his address this morning. I hope the Leader will acknowledge that that phrase could be open to misinterpretation, and perhaps he could clarify exactly what he means by the phrase, every willing elected member.
Thank you. Councillor Goldwick.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Stambro. Well, I was trying to capture the spirit of all of us as members in trying to help us all deal with the challenge, as I have done throughout the last couple of years. I think I've always spoken at council and looked across the chamber, and particularly pointed out not only myself, cabinet, the backbenchers on our team, but everybody else. And I really do mean everybody, but I'm sure I would hope that there aren't any members that aren't willing, but certainly I'm reaching out across the digital chamber as we see it now to everybody to say, let's get behind us, let's get behind the council. For the last 6 months, we've got a lot of work still to do, but recognise everybody's input and the way in which we've dealt with this challenge together, I would say, you know, and I mean that when we look across scrutiny, the contributions across party to help move this council on. And I think we have wholeheartedly made significant progress, but we've still got a little way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. I've so far no questions on either on the report, or anybody got any questions on the cabinet papers? So far nobody's indicated. Okay, Councillor Adam Brown has now.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, just a quick question, probably to Councillor Smithers, referencing the cabinet meeting on the 14th of July and bus services in Northamptonshire. It's not clear to me from the cabinet report whether NCC is in a position to consider further funding for bus services that are currently funded by parish councils and the like, and are being sustained via those alternative funding streams. Could I have clarification as to whether there is still funds available, and whether I can put the relevant parties in contact with Councillor Smithers to commence conversations?
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Smithers?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Brown. Happy to for you to pass my details on to your constituents to contact me directly, and we will answer those questions directly for you. So please feel free to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have now Councillor Meredith.
Oh, I'm unmuted. Thank you, Chair. I was really pleased that the leader and yourself mentioned the passing of David Capel. It was sad to me that to hear about his passing, and because I played in your team and also Matt's team, although I was bowled out first ball, you know, it was glad that you did mention his passing, and thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Meredith. Yes, there was a superb turnout yesterday, many would have seen. No further questions. Okay, so I've asked Council in that case to note the report of the leader and the cabinet papers. No vote? No vote. Okay, so move on to item 11. We're getting there, chaps. This is the annual report from the chairman of the Overrun Scrutiny Committee, so I'll invite Councillor Scrimshaw to propose the report.
Thank you very much, Chair. The first thing I'd like to say about scrutiny is something that I've said before, in that I think one of the successes of the current ONS committee at the County Council is the fact that the committee's leadership incorporates all political spectrums, in that the chair and vice chairs represent all political groups. We don't just have one vice chair, we have three. This means that while we may have differing points of view from time to time, we sort of forced, and we have to come together in a consensus, and I'm certain that that leads to a much more engaged response from the whole committee's membership, as members don't feel that they have to be concerned with any sort of hidden political agenda, but can get on with meaningful and constructive debate and questioning. I personally think that this setup should be copied by other counties, and it's certainly influenced this annual report, which you'll see is not just the report from the chairman, of myself, but also of the vice chairs collectively. That does, however, mean I may be looking for those same vice chairs to contribute in answering any questions that come up in the next couple of minutes. And indeed, even if we have slightly different views, hopefully you'll get a wider and more balanced answer than usual. This report isn't the longest report that we'll have had before us today, so I'm hoping most members have had a chance to at least scan through it. And also, of course, all of our meetings have been webcast and shown on YouTube even before the sort of COVID virtual meetings. So again, I'm hoping that non-committee members have had the opportunity to follow a little bit of what we've been done. So I don't intend to go through the report line by line, but would highlight the committee's work prior to the current budget being set, which I think was constructive and very useful for the council, and also sort of our ongoing commitment to the keeping a watching brief, if you like, on the council's finances in year.
A very essential non-statutory service. For example, on one patch in my borough ward, we have a girls' karate club, we have an LGBTQ club, we have a refugee club, and we have 2 clubs for local young people, both black, white and working class. All the clubs meet just 1 night a week. There is no crossover, they don't mix. The volunteers and the youth workers don't particularly know each other. They have no way of adding value to each other's work. A consequence of the closing down of youth services run by the county many years ago now was the loss of qualified youth workers, a loss of training opportunities for youth work. It is pleasing that youth agencies are now working with the university to create degree level opportunities, and a master's just begun this year for youth work. We know, and we heard from Thomas and we heard from Jodie, how tough life can be for some young people, experiencing poverty and deprivation, vulnerable to domestic abuse and gang violence. The numbers of off-roll children and excluded children we've heard today have risen. We have doubled the numbers of young people coming into care that we had formerly. We know that young people in rural areas have their own unique issues, including issues around isolation and substance misuse. We know COVID has created further difficulties and exacerbated mental health issues. We know that in these current times, school leavers are finding life particularly difficult getting into apprenticeships, into university, into work. We also know there's a huge amount of voluntary activity out there and services developing to support our young people. We know young people deserve to have their voices heard and their needs met, and that's what this motion is all about. We can help by supporting the voluntary sector, by setting up youth forums, by getting behind the campaign for a youth centre. And I just want to explain what a youth centre is, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about it. So a youth centre is not a youth club. It's a place where you can take advantage of drop-in facilities that are running 6 days a week from 10 in the morning till 10 at night. So there they would have safe, non-judgmental environments. They'd be able to voluntarily participate, and voluntarism is really, really important in a range of courses, classes, activities, an opportunity to learn new skills, to develop physical fitness, to increase their employment opportunities by working with youth workers to develop their CVs and their interviewing skills. They would be encouraged to become part of the volunteering effort, thereby fostering and promoting civic engagement. Spending time with other youth, so the youth groups I talked about before who don't mix, this would give them the opportunity to come together. Developing leadership skills, developing budgeting and fundraising skills through special event planning, having their achievements recognised and celebrated, having access to service agencies and referral services to which they may otherwise not have access. So that's the young people. For youth workers, what's in it for them? They would have their networking and training needs met. They would be able to share information, resources, and add value to each other's work. So, so important. For parents and schools, a youth centre, it will be a one-stop shop for them where they can go for support and advice. So really, really important. And there is government money available for these developments that we need to be able to access. So we can't do it without the support of local authorities. What Jodie didn't say that she wanted to say at the end of her speech was that our young people need a place in their community. They need safe spaces and places where they can fulfill their psychological development, their identity development through autonomous relationships and independent congregation with their peers. Healthy relationships and independence enable young people to become stable and positive adults. For disadvantaged young people, many spaces are unaffordable, and schools are often places where stereotypes and social exclusion breeds. It is really, really important at this time, post-COVID, we hope, that we really get behind the youth in the county, the youth in the two separate unitaries, and we really, really work very hard with all those involved in the voluntary sector to make life a lot easier for our young people. Thank you.
Birch is going to second the motion.
Thank you, Chair. And I second this with great delight. It's something very close to my heart, and it is something that is missing at the moment and not impossible for us to get set up within our county. As Danny Elstone has just said, what we're really asking for this motion is the equivalent of a one-stop shop. We're all familiar with that idea and the way that it works. But this would be for young people. It would be a safe space for young people to meet each other, to access support and services, and for the youth workers to work in a combined and consolidated way to deliver that support and services. And this generation of young people have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19, and their schooling, their education, training has been disrupted. We know that many will have been involved or not been involved in homeschooling and learning for some 6 months. Their GCSE and A-level results were chaotic, and many felt their ambitions and life chances had been compromised. Add to this the prospect of unemployment, homelessness, poverty, and perhaps further lockdown. We need to show this generation of young people that we all value their futures. We want to see them succeed in whatever their choices are. We want them to make good, positive choices in their lives and to have some hope for their future and to develop these good, lasting relationships that gives them the resilience to tackle and face the problems that they're going to inevitably meet. There are too many young children and young people out of school, excluded, enrolled off and homeschooled. And these young people are vulnerable to grooming. We've heard this several times today. You know, there's a great risk to our young people, exacerbated at the moment by COVID, by the lack of schooling and education and training that is accessible to them. And they so easily can drift into the edges of criminal behaviour. Without the encouragement to gain the skills and training and an environment that is supported by the trained youth workers and voluntary organisations, if we don't do this, I believe that we're not doing the best for our young people, and that they are our future, and they really deserve our help and our support at this very difficult time in their lives. So I hope and understand we have full support across the council for this, and I'm absolutely delighted that there are people agreeing with the project that we're proposing. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to say, as I did earlier, we all recognise how important good youth work is, and it can be far more than just having a youth centre with somewhere for people to go on, but it can, as Councillor Stone was alluded to, provide a whole wealth and plethora of different services and links into different services and other groups, etc. So we're pleased and as a group to support this, and happy that it moves forward, Chair. Thank you.
Chairman, you.
Councillor Scott, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I don't know what's happening, but when a speaker finishes, the screen seems to, the audio seems to go dead for a while, and the acoustics in Angel Square hasn't been all that good during the meeting. But thank you for letting me in. Mr. Chairman, I well remember the times when we had a number of youth clubs in Corby. In fact, one such youth club leader went on to become leader of Corby Council, and she did very well. And as an ex-Group Scout leader, I'm well aware of the successes youth clubs and youth organisations can make to this agenda. It's needed more than ever that we have trained youth workers who are able to point our children in the right direction and keep them interested when it's places where they make friends that they go on to have for life. Our children today have a lot of distractions, and things like drug addiction, disruptive behaviours, knife crime, trafficking, mental health issues are all on the increase, with a corresponding increase in the cost of the public purse. The positive effects youth clubs have shown in the past are well documented. Sadly, as relative council incomes have shrunk, so has youth funding, with the loss of benefit to our young people and our communities. It's time to bring back modernised youth clubs in communities, modernised facilities in our communities. So I will support this and hope to see a paper coming forward soon that gives us real hope for the future and gives our youth real support into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Meredith.
Thank you, Chairman. The motion which has been put before council, I welcome. I really welcome it. I think it's a good motion, and I fully support it. What I'm going to say is that when I used to run the youth area for the eastern side of the town 40 years ago, I originally called for a youth centre to be put in place then, but it wasn't to be, and it just went on. But throughout the years, when I first took up youth work, I've seen a steady decline in the amount of youth workers that was employed by the county council, and that made me very aware of what was happening to youth in this county. I was also very, very pleased to hear what Jodie Long said regarding the provision of youth today. And it's very, very difficult for young people now to react to what is happening with everything. And this is why some of the youth seem to get in all sorts of problems. If we did have a youth centre, and I'll just give you one example of what happened. If you got within a family, you have a young man or a young woman who falls out with their parents, and they can walk out of that home with nowhere to go. A youth centre would have been a place where they could actually stay and get support with the qualified youth officers. So if a youth centre comes out of this motion, I will be extremely pleased and grateful if this happens. And I was hoping when I was a member of the charity which was set up by the county council, I was actually in the process of being able to get a youth centre and funding for that. But unfortunately, I had to come off of that committee for other reasons that I won't explain now. But I hope that this charity, when it gets back working, will actually get the funding any way to set up the youth centre in Northampton. But if it is set up in Northampton, it must have links to other parts of the town, i.e. Corby, Wellingborough, and different areas like that, because it's not just going to be for youth in Northampton, it has to be for youth everywhere, and facilities have to be made so youth in Wellingborough or Corby can get access and to youth centres that are set up. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Rose. Councillor Dudley Hughes, you haven't raised your hand, but are you trying to attract to
Yes, I have put my hand. Yeah, thank you. Of course, I support this motion and the idea that there should be a youth centre in Northampton, but I plead with those who are setting up the new unitaries in your development of all your policies and all the rest of it, to think about youth activities and to think about supporting the fact there will be many more small authorities now. In some way, it's easier for small authorities to set up youth clubs than for the whole of Northampton. I think it's too big, really, because obviously the needs across Northampton are varied. So please, can we ask that, A, if you've got some details of money from government, I don't know about money from government, please send them to me, because I'm pleased to know about that for youth clubs. But please, can those involved in the new unitaries think about, amongst all the other many things you're thinking about, how you're going to promote young people. This is a wonderful opportunity with these small councils and small parishes and so on to actually help them set up youth clubs. And I would just do a plug for the Northampton Association of Youth Clubs, NAYC, that will actually train youth leaders. The problem is finding enough people to be youth leaders. And I know, where I live in Rawns, we could double the number of people we have in our scouts and all the rest of it if we had more youth leaders. So what we need is some encouragement to actually be youth leaders, maybe support for people in terms of helping them with expenses and so on, because I know very often these youth clubs or youth activities are entirely, the scouts and so on, entirely supported by money put in by the leaders at the moment, because of course they can't collect subscriptions so easily. So it really is an opportunity for the future. We can't do it for Northamptonshire or in the next 6 months, but in the future for the new unitaries to really do something to support youth activities, because we do need, and I agree with Councillor Meredith, we do need someone there who they can turn to, because very often the youth club provides a person who someone can go to and say, what do I do about not getting pregnant and things like that. Someone they trust. Probably not going to go to the teachers, because they're, teachers in a bit of an authority position. Someone they can just have a chat to, and youth clubs do provide that, and that's really important. So of course I support this for Northampton, but please for Northamptonshire too.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Hakewill.
Thank you, Chairman. I also concur that the speakers were extremely articulate and made the point particularly well. I also pick up the point from Councillor Stone about rural isolation. It's one thing to be in an area where you can actually get transport under the age of when you might drive a car, or indeed if you can own a car. But rural isolation is really important, and Councillor Meredith made a similar point. I also think when you talk to young people, there are big issues, big decisions, big Westminster type decisions which have come along, which appear to disproportionately affect the aspirations of young people. You take Brexit, climate change, COVID, the blame in terms of younger people, and the exam results fiasco. So these sort of youth clubs are places where they can go, they can assemble, and they can share ideas about their future. And we take a real big risk in not listening to those young people. I always remember on the libraries debate, one young lady who came along and said that without us, meaning young people, we were all dead. So I think we should remember that. I'm very happy to support the resolution, and going into the unitaries, whomsoever manages to win into those elections and be part of it, I'm quite sure we will take that forward and look after and nurture our young people, so that they might think about nurturing us in our older age. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McGee.
Thank you, Chair. How I wish
a lot of those councillors sitting here today were there in the early days when 3 million was took away from the youth services, and we had a march in Northampton, which I spoke at. We might not have been in the sad situation where we have to call for this now, but I am pleased that we have cross-party agreement on this. Extremely pleased. And I remember, Chair, and bear with me a sec, I remember when I was a cabinet member when we ever had Northamptonshire County Council, and my first role was communities which had youth services. And I was aboard to find out that there was no youth work happening in the rural areas. And I made that happen while I was there, because it should be something that's local to people. And I don't entirely agree with Dennis, and it's not often I say that, but it's got to be local, and you need one for Northampton, for the people of Northampton. Corby needs one for the children or the young people in Corby. Daventry needs one for the young people in Daventry. That's how we help them, because young people do not want to get on a bus, or maybe can't get on a bus and travel halfway around the country, halfway around the county, sorry, sir. So this is an excellent motion, and I'm pleased Councillor Stone brought this, and I'm pleased that we'll get joint support, and I really, really hope this happens for the young people in Northampton and across the county. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Stanborough. Councillor Stanborough, you there? No.
I think he's gone, Chair. He had volunteering at the library this afternoon.
All right. Councillor Baker. You're dropping off.
Yeah, I think Councillor Baker had to go as well. She's got another meeting.
All right, they both booked beforehand. Councillor Jill Mercer, ladies first.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I support youth work of any sort. I remember from my own youth clubs, very formative. It was mentioned earlier on about the voluntary sector, and as much as it would have been nice if we'd had youth work at the county, the voluntary sector has filled a gap. And as I mentioned earlier on, the work of the Groundwork Northamptonshire, who do absolute excellent work, and they're particularly busy with youth work. And in fact, Councillor McGee mentioned earlier on the JAM team, which was run by the Groundwork Trust. So I'd like to support this, but remember that we need to support our voluntary sector youth workers as well. The police have also, the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner has set up a new youth work team as well, and is helping out especially with things like gangs and drugs, and so that we need to get all parties together working with the youth and helping them to be engaged and have a full life.
Thank you. Councillor Andy Mercer, after which I've got two more, and hopefully that will be sufficient debate. Councillor Andy Mercer.
Thank you, Chairman, and congratulations on your appointment. I'm very happy to support this motion. It's not often that I say that about one of Labour's motions, but on this occasion, I think they've got it on the nail. As someone who's got 2 autistic grandchildren, I fully understand the issues here. And I would point out that the lack of youth facilities pushes children towards, and young people towards, social media in an unregulated manner. Now, obviously children and young people are going to find social media attractive, but when there is nothing that they can compare it with, they can't go to a responsible youth worker, come adult, who can discuss some of the issues with them. They can easily be sucked into accepting things that they shouldn't accept. We know that the dark web is a route by which grooming takes place, and in general, we need to have, as Councillor Dudley Hughes pointed out, someone who's an adult, but not an authoritative figure, that the children can go to when they need to discuss some of these issues. The alternative is that we're going to have children who are going to suffer in future years because they don't get that adult input from a neutral person at some point. So this is a really strong motion, and I'm glad that my group agreed to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Ribbons.
Thank you, Chair. And actually earlier I forgot to say congratulations on your appointment to your position, and I wish you well for the remainder of the year. So I think on this motion, it's a very good motion. And I think as a nearly young person, I'll call myself, I can kind of recognise the benefits of it. I'm someone that's grown up and been fairly lucky to have a family situation where I could turn to mum or dad over any issue and know that there is no problem with me asking them a question about anything, where life is quite stable, where I've had the opportunity to see different things, have different experiences that have set me up well to then go into the world of work, and have also given me the belief that kind of anything in life is possible if I want it. And actually that's not something that everyone has. And especially in that first 18 years of life, as much as putting my Tory hat on for a minute, as much as I as a Tory in the adult world believe very much in free markets and freedom and responsibility on the shoulders of the individual, actually in the first 18 years or even a couple of years after that, we need as much as possible to give all children and young people as good opportunities as are possible, and to instill a belief into all of them and keep them on a pathway that means that when they get to a certain age where they become an adult and they move out into the big wide world, that they have all had the same opportunities to learn, to experience, to talk to people, to broaden their horizons, and so that when they go in, they're applying for jobs, they're possibly going off to do other sort of studies or whatever it might be, that they've had the best possible grounding to get there. And where you've had family situations where children might not have had the person to turn to, I think youth work is an absolutely vital thing. Where you, like Andy Mercer said earlier, you have someone to turn to and you can ask questions of. And so I think the key bit to this is, as we have with many motions, a lot of the motions that we have are very good. They make some very good points. What we need to make sure of is that we really follow this up with action and with investment. I think that's absolutely key. We want to be a proactive council, and we want the unitaries to be proactive, because we know that if we invest at the early stages, the problems don't develop and we save money down the line. And that, that has got to be the guiding principles of where we move forward. And I think with the transformation work being done, I'm certainly very confident of that. So I fully support this, and well done, Councillor Stone.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Chairman. And I'm sure I'm not alone by saying that some of my happiest memories are from my younger days, or is it just that I've got a very good memory? I agree with Councillor Hakewell. I think our young people often get a very bad press and have taken a particularly bad press of late, but many of them are an inspiration. In particular, our uniform groups, our cadets, who are absolutely brilliant. I strongly believe that this is something we need to work hard at under unitary. And also with the creation of new town councils, this is something that we should also consider as part of that. I know you, Chairman, are as keen as I am to progress the Hemingwell Skills Centre community asset transfer in Wellingborough, and that will be hopefully done in the next few months. And of course, it's not just about fitness and sport, it's also about acting and the arts, because we need to make sure that we encourage children in lots of different directions and get them off of social media wherever possible. With that, I totally support the report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths, for those words. And also, as a trustee of a uniform group, I'm aware, as Councillor Hughes said, that they've not been able to meet, and it's very frustrating. Councillor, I said no more, but Councillor Brackenbury did indicate to speak. So,
thank you, Chair. Councillor Griffiths has said some of what I was going to say. I think we're very lucky. We're fortunate that we've got Cathy Hadley, who's now the permanent DCS at County Council, and she has been working very hard in delivering on the improvement plan. And we've got recommendations at the Northampton Shadow Council this evening to recommend that she takes on that role across both unitaries. And I think the future is bright, actually, for children in Northamptonshire. And I think we've got to work hard to give them the best start in life. But there's certainly, you just look at the blueprint that's going to the Northants Shadow this evening, and that went to the West on Tuesday. And there is a lot in there for that focuses on youth, but across all age groups as well. So I think there's a lot to look forward to in Northamptonshire. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I invite Councillor Stone to make any comments to round up?
Lovely, thank you very much. And thank you to all the members who spoke. And I find it so heartening, I can't tell you, that everybody is in agreement and is obviously speaking out of a huge experience, not just of their own lives, but of their own communities and the considerable volunteer youth work that's going on across the county, often with very little money and with very little training in actual fact. The Rotherham report, which is something that's kind of stuck in my heart following the exploitation of young people in Rotherham, showed really clearly that youth workers are the ones that children trust the most to go to when they have confusions or any kinds of difficulties. And so having youth workers available for all our young people, not just disadvantaged young people, but all young people, I think is really, really important. I just wanted to let you know about something that happened last year. And last year, Northampton trialled having a youth-led youth conference. I did this years ago with Groundwork, actually, in Corby. We used to run an annual youth conference led by young people there. And we trialled it in Northampton last year. It was fabulous. It was fabulous. The young people are absolutely amazing. And they just demonstrated that given the opportunities, you know, they can move mountains. It cost very little money. It had a huge impact. And we had 45 youth providers attending that day to share the day with those young people. It was magnificent. We're doing it again this year in November, but we're doing it virtually. And so everything will be streamed and we'll be able to go out across the county. I just wanted people to know that. What we're asking in this motion are for three things, really. One is, no, Councillor McGee was right, and Councillor Dudley was right. Everything has to be accessible very, very locally. We know that. These are youth clubs. We know that's got to happen. What we also want is the youth to be able to consider what their needs are and to find a way of expressing those needs and telling us what they are. So youth forums are really, really important in that respect. Youth centres are bigger than both. They incorporate the both. They are the engine, the drivers for a youth movement in both the unitaries and on the county footprint. I'm very, very grateful for the support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. So I'll put that to Council, whether we accept the motion.
Chair, I move that the final poll of the meeting, members have 20 seconds to cast their votes. Chair, got 28 for, none against, and no abstention. 28. Everybody go.
Thank you. So that's unanimous, and I'm very pleased to hear young people are the future of the county, and we must do all we can to help them have a prosperous future. Item 13, using my discretion, there is one piece of business the Chief Executive has asked to speak to the Council for a second.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, really, for members of scrutiny, but also for all members, and to reassure members in relation to the Children's Trust, and that is that scrutiny, overview and scrutiny, will still have a key role in scrutinising the performance of the Trust. And within the governance arrangements, there will be several times a year where the Trust will need to come and present to overview and scrutiny, and that will be built into the scrutiny calendar. Also, overview and scrutiny will hold the DCS, the joint DCS, to account for the commissioning of services from the Trust, and that will be both for the North and the West. So overview and scrutiny in both unitaries will play a role. Also, at the current time, we're in the process of negotiating for a Children's Trust, as you know, with the go-live date of the 1st of November. And now that that date is firmed up, we have agreed, and I think the commissioners have agreed as well with scrutiny, that we will take that to scrutiny before the Trust goes live so that they can see the contract that's been agreed in terms of the financial contract, etc. And we're hoping to be able to get a date in October where we'll have that ready to be able to discuss with scrutiny. So just to reassure you that scrutiny is very much on the agenda in terms of the future performance of children's services for Northamptonshire. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure that's reassuring for all members. I have no other business. It remains just to thank officers for their support, and particularly Democratic Services who have been running the meeting successfully, I think, and to wish Susan Zeiss well on her new role. And with that, I'll close the meeting. Thank you.